Welcome to this continuation of my DireLands system agnostic dark fantasy campaign setting. My name is Adam, and in this episode, I'm going to be outlining the DireLands fantasy campaign setting personalities. I'll also be discussing other concepts of the DireLands setting, so if you're interested in watching someone develop a campaign setting from nothing to fully fledged, this is definitely a stream for you. Now, because today I'm talking about personalities, you can clearly see the map. Well, no, you can't actually here. You can now clearly see not only my notes, but also the map of Fall Est, which is where this campaign primarily takes place. And I figured I should at least, at the very bare minimum, have the primary personalities for the three main nations. So we have Locastin in the north, we've got Bressus in the west, and Kalia in the east. So let's just start with the Witch Queen, because, I mean, why not? So I actually do have pronunciations. These are temporary names. I'm going to be getting, I've actually got a wonderful individual working on a original series of languages. But what I'm trying to do is add pronunciations after each word right now so I can just say it as accurately as I can, the way intended. Now, most of this is based on Scottish Gaelic, just so you know. So anyway, in Locastin, the Witch Queen, that's where she sort of rose up out of nowhere. She dominated the entire continent of Fall Est and probably had designs for the entire world of Ciarán Vonnig. But ultimately, she was defeated. She had 700 years of a reign before the Triumvirate, led primarily by the individual that we're going to be getting into here, Lord Keel Graven, led primarily by him in sort of getting assistance from Kalia, from Cian Side. I'm probably saying that wrong, so let's just get it right so I don't have to go back and forth. I probably also should have done this before I went live. So, Kaunshie? I don't know. Anyway, Kaunshie is how we're going to pronounce it. But basically, he's one of the First Nations people. He's a tribal elder, and he leads the entirety of the Bilgos, which is basically a ruling representative, like a collective of all of the tribal leaders all around Kalia. There's 7 of them. And you can see in my notes here that I've got it all listed down, and I just haven't developed it yet. That's what these series of videos are for. Now, I've developed the first 3, and I kind of wanted to, go a little bit of back and forth and just sort of talk about it as I did it. And this not only helps inform someone else who wants to develop their own campaign, but also, if they're interested in DireLands, to further understand really the depth of this setting that I'm forming here. So let's start with the Witch Queen, Menanach. After 200 years of laying a foundation with the cosmic witches of Ciarán Vonnig, now the cosmic witches, before I go on, they're like a type of witch that exists in DireLands. DireLands isn't your typical fantasy world where it only deals with the prime material plane, and then, at higher levels, you would then go to other planes of existence and stuff. This starts off with a cosmic scope. So it's not just different planes of existence with the prime material, it's actually space and the other planets in the solar system. And of course, you can see those right here. So you can see that I've really sort of thought about this and how this is going to work. These are all, this is not just our earthly solar system redone. This is actually different. But in any case, it doesn't show any rings or anything around some of these planets, but some of them do have planets. Some of them do have satellites/moons orbiting around them, and there are asteroid fields and stuff like that. But for the sake of just a generic map, I didn't really want to get into all of that detail right off the bat. That will be for future supplements. Okay, so with 200 years of laying a foundation with the cosmic witches, meaning she was communicating, or her people, whomever they may be, were communicating with the cosmic witches on Ciarán Vonnig, The ancient knowledge of Dukarechev, which again, all of these have very simplistic meanings in Scottish Gaelic, but they have very long worded names to describe each of the very simplistic ideas. The knowledge of the Dukarechev allowed the northern pole's glaciers to rapidly spread across the northern third of the planet, laying a foundational region for the Witch Queen to enter the planet. Now, that is to say, and this is stuff that's pretty spoilery, so if you're going to be running through the first campaign setting that I'm going to be developing, you probably don't want to watch this part, but in either case, in this northern region up here that's completely covered, I'm going to sort of zoom in on it. Right next to the Yezi's Range, that's actually a touch point for not only one of the main moons that orbits this on a 25-year cycle. It gets close enough, and then this sort of magical bridge opens up and allows entities from the moon to then escape down into Kirdvonig, specifically this region of the continent of Falest. That's probably where the Witch Queen came from, where Mininoc came from originally. But because no one knows that, it's just a sort of a development note for all of us here who are just sitting through this stuff. All right, so laying a foundational region of the Witch Queen to enter the planet. She probably came right there, and there might actually be an entire sort of base camp space, and maybe even at this point after 700 years, possibly cities up there that are either on top of the surface of the ice, built within the structure of the ice, or delved down into the actual Earth itself, the planet itself. So, but in any case, whatever the depth, these things have a foothold, and no one knows about it because no one can cross that many miles of a glacier and survive. It's just too far for any group of people, at least not that we've known of. And that's not to say that people haven't tried. It's just not common knowledge as far as the timeline of this land is. So you might end up running into cultures like the people who live up in Bailey or Cess, who might have actually tried to make treks across to see how large of a span this glacier actually exists. Because again, there's not technology. This is all sort of Renaissance to primitive technological levels. So it's not like they have surveying equipment or satellites that they can see, large scopes. And that's why there's still continents that are unexplored, because they may actually be inhabited and explored, but the information hasn't spread across the planet with open seafaring and stuff. And there are expeditions that have left, they just haven't yet returned for one reason or another. Not really germane to this discussion today, though. All right, so once she got onto the planet, she claimed the role of Empress, outlawed the strongest male lines of spellcasters, and turned the people of Locastin against the rest of Falest. By sowing dissent within each nation and its people, she was able to subjugate the demi-races and rule unchecked for over 700 years. She was believed to have been killed in 10 FA, that is the Frozen Era. So with that much information, we now realize that the Witch Queen isn't just this amorphous title or this sort of ambiguous presence of an empress. She actually has a name, Mininoc. She has come from somewhere else. She is an extraplanar creature, but she definitely came from this prime material plane, probably through our own moon or some other cosmic means, through the machinations of the cosmic witches who dwell on this planet. So she's had help. She's been in contact with this planet for probably much longer than she's actually been on it, which tells you a lot about, the sort of longevity of lifespans that whomever she is or whatever type of an entity she is, that they exist in. And that's really daunting when you're sort of approaching this idea from mortal means, Because normal people, you're going to be living maybe in like fantasy worlds. You might live, if you're really lucky, 65, 70, like really lucky. But if you're a warrior or something, you probably lived in your 30s. And that's best case scenarios in most cases. But then if you're not a warrior, you're just living like an elder at a First Nations people in a peaceful society, as peaceful as they can be, you might live to 70 or 80, and you don't have to really worry about the structures of warfare and the life limiting effects of that. But then if you're other demi races, then of course your lifespans last infinitely longer, up to hundreds and hundreds of years, maybe even close to 1,000 depending on the race. So that was the Witch Queen Meninoc up in the north in Locastin. Right now she's gone. The first campaign that I'm going to be developing out is specifically when she's still around. And it's going to talk about her downfall. All right, so the next personality I wanted to talk about is the Master of Shields of the Triumvirate. The Triumvirate itself, which is this sort of military knightly organization that exists in Bressus, but is also this sort of global entity. Well, not global, but continent-wide knightly order that in history has been very, respected and adored. In these days, after the Witch Queen's fall, they've sort of fallen out of order. But this is him before the fall of the Witch Queen, because he helped in it. Anyway, the Triumvirate itself is broken into 3 separate orders. You have your Master of Shields, your Master of Arms, and the Master of Books. So the Master of Shields is your warring faction. He lived in Bressus from 5 a.m. to 9 FA. He organized the resistance, or he was actually in control between those times. He organized the resistance to the Witch Queen from the free peoples of Bressus, Calia, and Locastin in secret. So what no one really tells you about the history is that not all of Locastin was under the control or purview of Meninoc, the Witch Queen. There are people like up in Bailey and Cess who they were not affected as much as everyone else by the glacier traveling south, and they've actually done their best to stay isolated. But it was through the efforts of the heroes, which will, of course, be the player characters of this first campaign that I'm developing. It was through the assistance of them reaching out to those communities that they actually got their aid to help them as spies, as guides over the glacier, and then ultimately as warriors to help put down the Witch Queen herself. And she never suspected it because first of all, she probably didn't even know they existed. She assumed all of Locastin was under her control, and this is one of the downfalls of any empress. Or emperor, they just assume everyone in their territory is under their dominion. But there are spies everywhere in the world. People who are in active resistance to the structure of power that they're living under. And in most cases, because of the power they're living under, they need to be a resistance. And that is the case here. So not only did Lord Keelgraven reach out to the people of Locastin, he also had the great need of reaching out and uniting the various tribes in Calia. And they are not normally unified. These are First Nation peoples. Some of them were forced to migrate from Locastin when the glacier first came in and set up whole new homes for themselves, and they were pushed east from the men of Bressus. And so there's no love lost from not only the original inhabitants of what is now considered Calia, but also Bressus or Locastin. And so it took a lot of effort to unite everyone. And that effort wasn't just done through typical diplomatic means. The heroes have to go and communicate with these disparate tribal peoples and talk to their gods, their spirits that they worship. And one thing that also sort of differentiates DireLands from typical fantasy, campaign settings is that the gods in this are very much grounded. They're not like extra dimensional entities like you see in Greek mythology, for example. Most people worship the spirit realm. They worship the elements. I'm talking about the First Nations people, that the elements themselves or regions. Like there's mountain gods, there's spirits of the swamps that they have to pacify. And each culture has different understandings of these, though some of them have overlap. And so part of the challenge of the heroes on behalf of Lord Keelgraven is going to be reaching out to these different tribes, going through the efforts of showing that they are individuals of good righteousness, quality, honor, whatever that individual culture, needs to be able to trust, and then convince them to join the efforts. And so that was a huge task, and that's why it took so many years, but it did in fact happen. So he organized the resistance to the Witch Queen from the Bressus, Caeli, and Locastin in secret. Ultimately, he was killed when the Gaulics assassins sent by the Witch Queen infiltrated the capital city of Trinicius. And you can see Trinicius right here. That's the capital city, not the capital of arts, science, and technology. As much technology as there is in this fantasy world. But that was a huge blow, not only to the Triumvirate, but to the unification efforts, because he was the one that orchestrated it all. And so it fell to the heroes of the campaign to maintain the unity that he had created with their help, of course, which is why it was able to maintain order. And they led the efforts to assault and overthrow the Witch Queen. But yeah, those Gaulics assassins, man, any assassin in general with their assault is going to be quite a difficult thing to deal with. All right, so that's Locastin, that's Bressus. Let's talk about Caelia. The chieftain of the High Earth tribe and head of the Bealgos, again, the Bealgos is the unified representatives of all the tribes, is named Kaunshihe. He was able to convince the other tribes of Caelia to join with the Triumvirate of Bressus and the Free Peoples of Locastin to stand up against the Witch Queen. He is currently an elder and chieftain in name only. The Bealgos is in tatters now that the threat of the Witch Queen has ended. And like I said before, ultimately, the different tribes don't see things the same way. They live their lives. Some of them are nomadic. Some of them, are cave dwellers. Some of them live in elevated areas around swamps. But ultimately, they all have very different worldviews, and just because they're First Nation people doesn't mean they all get along, and it certainly doesn't mean that there hasn't been some, let's say, slavery in their past and warring actively. This stuff just happens when you have disparate cultures in a shared region. Hey, Chris, how you doing, man? Can you buy vacant land now while it's still affordable? Now would be the time. I mean, really. Depending on the type of character you want to play, that's going to dictate where you're going to be, the region you're in. But yeah, definitely. You can have that hex right there. You see it? It's that one. All right. So I wanted to, because these are development episodes, I did want to sort of develop out some, actively with you guys watching and listening so we can sort of work on this. I think one that would be nice, and ultimately what I'm trying to do is have one primary representative NPC for each sort of organization, as it were. So we'll go through some of these and just see which ones seem interesting and see what we can sort of just develop out and just so we can have a personality to fall back on when it comes up in a campaign. Because ultimately, while all of them probably won't, some of them certainly will, and it will be nice to have something to fall back on. You know what I mean? I would like to start with the Gaulex. Ultimately, the Gaulex is, and let's look at the campaign source book, and let me show you my definition. So the Gaulex are the remnant forces of the Witch Queen after having been defeated by the Triumvirate. They have a foothold in the ice realm of Locastin. You can see that they exist here in Vergnim, primarily, but they have mines up in Grimf, Zesses, and Clintock. So that is where the remnant forces of the Witch Queen exist. And of course, they are trying to not just build up their forces, but perhaps even resurrect their Empress. Who knows? Who knows what's happening? But we need a personality. We need a name. Now, this is going to be like your second hand, the hand of the Empress, as it were. So the second most powerful entity in all of the Empress's military Galek's might. So let's just come up with a great fantasy name here. Ultimately, he's going to be an orc. He's going to be a magically improved orc. He's got sort of magical abilities infused by the Witch Queen herself. So, what I like to do usually is just look at the keyboard and look at letters and just sort of see what swirls in my head. But we can even just go further and just do it by, what does he represent? He represents military might. He represents remnant magical, residual magical forces of Menanok. So maybe we just play off of Menanok. He adopted a name that would be a step, the sort of the hand of Menanok. And maybe that's his adopted name, Hand of Menanok, in his own Locastan language. So here's what I want to do. There's some really great ways of, like I said, I'm really sort of obsessed with the Scottish Gaelic language. So if I look up hand, we have a couple really kind of interesting ones. Let's see. Hand over the knife, hand clippers, hand shield. Let's see, what would be a good one? Ooh, hand on the sword hilt. Handful. I like the hand on the sword hilt. What is that? Okay, I couldn't hear that. Yeah, that's a totally easy name to say. Lav-Sakhlayev. That's going to be his name. It's the most crazy one out there you could possibly have. That is his name. I'll have to do a phonetic, pronunciation for that. But that's going to be his name for now. Maybe it'll change. But it's hand on the sword. So basically, he is the defender of Menanok, which I kind of dig. All right, so that's his name. Let's see, how have we done these? So he is the leader of the Galeks, the hand of Menanok, the Witch Queen. He led the forces of Locastan against the Triumvirate, and sent the assassin. What's the assassin's name? Uglon. Who, not which. Who killed Lord Keelgraven. He rules in the absence of the Witch Queen from her seat of power in Vergnim. Triumvirate is spelled wrong. Galeks is spelled right. And we can get rid of that. Here, let me do X. Put it there. And then that's H4. So we'll make that an H4. All right. So we've got the leader of the Galeks. What I haven't really done is described what any of these people look like. And I'm not sure it's really important now, but I'll give their race here. The orc leader of the Golics. And let's see, chieftain of the High Earth tribe and have the Biogos. So we'll say human chieftain. Master of the shields of Triumvirate of Bresis. Where can I put human in his? I guess the human. Master of shields. And the Witch Queen, we don't know what she is, so we can't say what race she is. All right, so let's find a nice female magical organization. So the Crowless Car, this is an order of female witches, which is mistrusted after the fall of the Witch Queen. They're located in Kalia and practice primitive ritual magic of the First Nation. So let's do someone from the Crowless Car right here. So we're going to have it before. And let's see, we want... all right, well, here's just witch.
Dochak.
Dochak. So we'll have that be her stand-in name for now. Dochak. Oh boy. Here, let me do this. H4. Human, female. You know what? Let's make her an elf. Elven female. Witch of the Crowless Car. And what did we say here with the Crowless Car? So they're located in Kalia. They practice ritual magic. So I don't know if witch would be we'll say sorceress. So where should we, if she lives in Kalia, I mean, there's a lot of regions that she could be from, but I kind of want it to be like one of the wild areas, one of the wildlands. So maybe it's the wildlands north of Munru, because we have this huge area, and there you can see there's already ruins there. So just north of Munru is this wildlands area. That's where she's going to be from. Yeah, that works. All right, elven female sorceress of the Crowless Car. We're going to call it a coven. Her coven resides in the wildlands north of Munru in Kalia. Her coven practices ancient ritual magic, rumored to connect with the cosmos. So, is she one of the ones that helped bring the downfall of Menenok, the Witch Queen, because she knew about her? Or is she one of the ones that helped bring her about in the first place? Or is it both? Is it possible that they helped bring Menenok down and then realized what she was and what she did, and they're like, ah, shit, we got to stop this? She's an elf, so she could have lived the lifespan that long. I believe in a lot of fantasy cultures, elves live for, upward of 1,000 years, maybe 700 to 900 or something. In DireLands, they can live 1,000 years. I don't care. So let's see. Order of female witches mistrusted after the fall of the Witch Queen. They're located in Kalia and practice primitive ritual magic of the First Nation. All right. So it doesn't say they helped anyone. So maybe they are the ones that were helping out Menenok, because let's see. The Cosmic Witches. Do we make the Kroliskar the Cosmic Witches? I don't know. Let's see. What other event in her life could we mark here? Her coven practices ancient ritual magic rumored to connect with the cosmos. It resides in the wildlands north of Moonru and Kalia. All right, well, let's have a conflict within there. And maybe that's part of the reason why they became mistrusted, or it was revealed that they helped. And that's another reason maybe why they became distrusted. But it is rumored that she aided in the coming of the Witch Queen. But the Kroliskar fractured from within, and it is unknown whether Dordiech survived. So I like something traumatic that they had to overcome. Let's see. She aided in the coming of the Witch Queen, but the Kroliskar fractured from within after a magical plague infected the wildlands. And it is unknown whether she survived. So this magical plague, was it because the Witch Queen died? Is it because she's still alive and she's infecting the land of Falest? I mean, who knows? But if the magical plague is affecting the wildlands, it's not just affecting the wildlands north of Moonru in Kalia. It's going to be affecting maybe all the wildlands. And maybe that's a point of adventure where heroes are going to have to investigate the wildlands, which no one is supposed to go in because it's wild, not just from mundane creatures on the planet, but also, the spirit realm, the sort of the veil between realities. With D&D parlance, you could call it the Shadowfell or the Feywild. That membrane between realities, maybe it's thin, or maybe the entities that live in the Feywild and the Shadow Realm, or the Shadow Realm? Anyway, maybe they didn't like what the Kroliskar were doing, and they decided to introduce the plague in order to stop the Kroliskar. So you can see that there's a lot of possibilities with that idea, and that all just came from one elven female sorceress that we just came up with. So a lot of really great stuff. What's wonderful about this is I'm not just spitballing with you all back and forth. I'm actively recording it for the show. So I can always watch this back and, take notes and remember, and use that as sort of jumping off points for adventure seeds or for inclusion in the actual campaigns that we're going to be doing. Because let's be honest, the plague that assaulted them happened after the Witch Queen's fall. So maybe that's the secondary campaign jump off point, where, other grand events are revealed. So, all right, cool. So we've got a nice elven female sorceress. You know what I kind of want to do? I want to look at some of these locations because I really want to do a swamp, like a swamp tribal people. And maybe Zexeshu is the one to do it. Let me look. Yurthek is the capital. It's grassy. It doesn't really have swamp. I think Zexeshu is it. All right. So we're going to do the tribe of Zexeshu and their tribal leader and talk a little bit about their culture. So let's find them in my notes here. Zexeshu. All right. So again, whenever I'm referencing some of these names, I don't always want to just go to the Scottish Gaelic pool of language. Sometimes I want to think about what's the culture like. The culture is going to inform your language, and this is Kalia, so this is the First Nations people, so it's a little bit more, maybe even, maybe even like Louisiana, it's sort of swampy region. So maybe we're pulling just a touch of French. Maybe we're pulling like a little bit of Native American vibe. Let me think about it. They live in Zazekshu, so that's a little bit of rougher name. Not Jess. Jack Kiris. Jakiru. We'll do Jakiru. All right. So Jakiru. And you know what? Let's do. Not all of these First Nations people were human, and we have a whole host of other races that we can play with. They're going to be living in a swamp on elevated platforms. It's not like a Ewok village, as it were, in the jungle or something, but it is, pretty elevated so that they can not worry about rising tides or massive storms that come in or anything, destroying their homes. And because it's a swamp, it's not very stable ground anyway. So, Jekkiru. Gosh, I don't want to do an elf again, but I don't want to do a halfling for that. And dwarves doesn't really fit right. So maybe I do just stick it with human. All right, so human chieftain of the Zazekshu tribe. They dwell in elevated wooden structures over the swamp. Over the swamp, next to the, not over the swamp, structures over the swamp, near the ruins. Of Dual Goth. So now I just named the ruins that are just northeast of Zazekshu as Dual Goth. I don't know. I'm going to be changing these names around a little bit once I get the language nailed down. It's interesting to think how living in a swamp would impact the physiology and psychology of the people. Well, that's where you deal with the, what's their spirituality like? What's their religion like? How do they see the world? These are First Nations people, but they're not nomads. This is their home. This is where they hunt. So if they hunt here, what do they look like? Maybe they are wild elves. Maybe, they're sort of swamp elves. It just sounds sort of silly, but yeah, I kind of like that. The elven chieftain. So yeah, maybe he is a more of a primitive version of the elves. It's like a wild elf, but they exist in a swamp environment and they hunt there. So they're hunting massive crocodiles. They're hunting all sorts of aberrant beings and creatures that, sort of infest their swamp. They have to deal with tons of snakes, and maybe there's some nagas that live up near Dulgoth that they have to deal with, or they worship possibly. Maybe that's the Dulgoth is a sort of an ancient holy site that of people that came before the Zazekshu tribe even settled here. Maybe they just saw that this snake god exists up and around this area that they called Dulgoth, and they have to appease them, and so they hunt off in the sort of hills and plains to the north and west and bring that sort of sacrifice to the Naga of Dulgoth, and that then will promise them a fruitful year. Maybe it's an annual or a sort of a like a solstice event that they have to go through. I don't know. Okay, so let's think about this. So the elven chieftain of the Zezekshu tribe, they dwell in the elevated wooden structures over the swamp near the ruins of Dulgoth. I mean, they don't all have to be men. She has maintained unity in the tribe by splitting away from, where is it? The Bilgos. After the fall of the Witch Queen. They didn't want to be involved in that war in the first place, and so as soon as their goal was achieved, they broke away. That also then fractured the rest of the tribes, gave the other tribes reason to get out if they were looking for it. But it also means that they're not so trusted. If they're making pacts with ancient entities like mysterious Naga up in the hills, the swamp hills of Dulgoth, maybe they're not so good. You know, maybe they are sort of questionable. Are they chaotic evil? Are they, do they have their own laws they adhere to other than this solstice sacrifice ritual that they have to go through in order to maintain their quality of life as they believe it? I think that's kind of interesting because clearly they're not straight evil in that they won't help the rest of the people because they did unify, but was that out of just self-preservation? I think that's interesting things to think about. After the fall of the Witch Queen, she currently, oh gosh, I don't know what else we need to say about her. See, the orc leader, he leads the forces. They had a problem. She currently leads the solstice and equinox sacrifice hunts, and her her tribe chief, war chief, Roke, delivers it to the Naga with their spiritual elder. And let's do a play on the town name. Zealous. So it's Zezekshu and Zealous. Okay. So she doesn't actually deal with the actual face-to-face. That's more of a ritual that the spiritual elder deals with. But she definitely wants to be out there with her war chief, hunting the creatures that they then provide as sacrifice. I think that's pretty good. Sorry, just doing some capitalization corrections here. All right, so we've got the tribal elder, or the tribal chieftain of the Zezekshu. We've got the female sorceress leader of the Krolus Kar. We've got the Jekkiru of the... Oh, that's Zezekshu. We just did that. We got all sorts of cool stuff. All right, who do we want to do next? We did tribal. The Haste Ascension. Let's do an evil one. Let's see. No. What about Area of Waters? Obscure Order of Warlocks who remove their... Oh, yeah, let's do that one. Okay, so the Area of Waters... This is an obscure order of warlocks who removed their eyes, claiming to be able to commune with cosmic beings. They were the first to be hunted down and their tongues removed by the Witch Queen, prompting all men to be banned from practicing magic. They were known to dwell in the wildlands. Now, here's the deal. Because the Witch Queen removed their tongues, it became a cultural act for all future generations of Area of Waters members to remove their tongues. So not only do they remove their eyes, they remove their tongues, and so the only way they can communicate is through ESP. So they practice magic, they commune with cosmic entities. They're not the ones. Oh, hold on. Let's consider this for just a second as we're sort of riffing. If a group of people communed with cosmic entities to bring the Witch Queen down, Meninoc, then maybe she doesn't want anyone to learn about that. And so she would then cut out the tongues of the people who helped her to stop them. And then, to prevent them from telling anyone else, she outlaws men from magic. So maybe it is literally the Area of Waters that were the ones that brought her down. And then ultimately the other ones, the female sorceresses, the Doidega, maybe they, the Krolos Kar, maybe they were communing with other entities, and that's what caused them to sort of fall out too. All right, in any case, I want to do the Area of Waters. Now, this is a mail order, and it's not racial at all. I mean, you can be any race and be a member of their orders, but we're going to have the current leader be a dwarf, a hill dwarf. So, what's his name? It's got to be like a sort of gruff, like, I mean, let's pull a little bit of Ghostbusters here. What about Zool? You know, that's gonna be my temporary name. I'll change it, but I want it to be Zool for now. All right, so Zool is the dwarven high mage of the Area of Waters. He was forced underground after the arrival of the Witch Queen. Ironically, as the Area of Waters aided in her arrival, she didn't want anyone to know or have any, what's the word I'm looking for? Rivals. So she had all of their tongues removed, forcing the culture to adopt ESP. Let me fix some of my spelling errors. Zool and his order still live in the wildlands. All right, where? It's got to be in the north because that's where they came from. Should it be just right here on the border of Kalia? No, let's have it be over here. West of Kren. Right in this area right here. So let's see. The wildlands west of Kren. Make sure I'm spelling Kren right. Krex. Oof. In Locastin. All right. So now we've established that the Area of Waters did in fact help Meninoc come down, but then they were betrayed by her and forced to go into hiding in the wildlands. And because no one goes in the wildlands, they were able to still maintain their existence. next to these sort of ruins. All right, that's cool. Let's do one more. We can do one more. Let's see. Zalshin. Let's see what Zalshin is. Zalshin is the order of female sources is mistrusted after no. Do we do another let's do another native first person's tribe. Let's see here. Any of them live near mountains? I want to do the cave dwelling ones. Huh. Well, that's going to be in Locaston. All right. I guess I'll do some nomadic ones that live around Kahutehe. Kahutehe. That's what we'll do. All right, so let's see which ones there is. Kahutehe. And their tribal chief is going to be a human male. You'd love to see a distinctive race for DireLands becomes instantly recognizable. Swamp ass. I mean elves. Yeah, I mean the problem with distinctive races is it's not agnostic to all fantasy settings. And because I want this to be easily integrated into any set, any sort of game system, you'd have to come up with stats for the new race in each system for it to be truly agnostic. So I just sort of want it to be, you know, pervasive and everything. Let's see. And hopefully the cultures are going to be rich enough. The history is going to be rich enough. The campaign setting is going to be rich enough that that's the distinguishing factor, not just a creature or, you know what I mean? So it's something greater than just a singular creature. So Kahutehe, let's see, his name is... you know what? I'm just going to do Fire Eyes. So Fire Eyes is the human chieftain. You know what? I'm going to do Fist. Is the human chieftain of the... So Fire Fist. Come on, you turd. No, go to 4. There. All right. Fire Fist is a human chieftain of the Kahutehe tribe. They are a nomadic scavenger. First Nations nomadic scavenger tribe of cannibals. They deal in slave trafficking, and regularly war with their tribal neighbors. All right, so we've initially set these guys up. Not all like First Nations people were nice. I think that's an American idea that we sort of, you know, this sort of Anglo-Saxon European concept that was forced on all of us culturally. That no, all First Nation peoples, they were peaceful and loving and they blended with their nature. But that is not reality. That's not reality at all. They enslaved each other and went to war with each other, and they did everything just like everyone in Europe did. They just all turned against Europe when Europe tried to invade, well, successfully invaded and killed them all in massive genocide. All right, so in this particular world, in DireLands setting, yeah, they practice cannibalism, and that's not a crazy idea or like a sort of a taboo concept. It is in our Western culture, but it's still practiced around the globe today. There are tribes, there are very primitive tribes that still exist that practice cannibalism, and it's the idea of absorbing the power of the enemies that you defeated. And so, if you have enemies that are like salty language. These guys sound like real jerks. I don't have a symbol. That was my ching, the top hat. That's their sense of pride and power, that they can defeat a powerful enemy of a rival tribe and then literally consume their strength so that they become even more powerful. Yeah, I like these guys. I wouldn't want to meet them, but I like them. All right, so human chieftain of the Kahutehe tribe. They're a First Nation nomadic scavenger tribe of cannibals. They deal in slave trafficking and regularly war with their tribal neighbors. So, who are they selling the slaves to? One might ask. Well, there's a road. Now, this town just indicates this little hut thing here. That just indicates that that's a region that people call home. And in the case of this tribe, they roam all around these grass plains, in and out of the wildlands that are just south of them, southwest of them, but also north up into Locastan territory specifically. So they certainly sell slaves to Locastan cultures, but also Bressus is not above slavery. I mean, slavery in our modern history was a normal thing. It happened in every culture, in every region, on every continent. And it was a way not just for, as a sort of a group that's in charge to subjugate other groups, but it was also a means of creation, massive monuments. It was also a way of dealing with thievery or, individuals that break laws. So I know our own modern history view of slavery is ultimately horrible, and it is. I'm not trying to say it's not, but it was very common back in the day. So I'm bringing that back. I'm bringing slavery back in a big way, but just for DireLands, not in the real world. All right, so they regularly trade with the peoples of Locastan and Bressus, but not Kalia. For some reason, Kalia sort of looks down their nose at slavery. Why? Oh, I can't imagine. There might be other cannibals, but these guys are going to be the ones that I'm going to call out for cannibalism. Firefist is believed to have consumed 5 war chiefs in his life, and is seen as a supernatural. What's a good stand-in, like as someone that a god could inhabit? What's a word I'm looking for here? As an not avatar. I'll say avatar for now, but that's not what I'm looking for. As a spiritual avatar, a spiritual host of their war god. Shoot, now I got to name a god. Of their war god. Evas. Evaz. That's their war god, Evaz. All right, cool. That's not bad. We're at our hour now. We've outlined some really interesting personalities. We've defined some cultures, and we've sort of filled in the world with stuff that I had not planned on filling it in with, to be quite honest. It just sort of came out, and I kind of dig it. So, what do you guys think so far of the people's? Are they all just horrible? Is there no one good? I'll have to do a good person. All right. Well, that's going to do it for this episode of Personalities. You can see the clear direction that I'm taking is that good and bad is subjective. There's no alignments, in this particularly. So, like, if you play this in a campaign where you play a paladin type, they're going to be a paladin more like a cavalier, where they're swearing their oath to. They're going to be getting it from their god, but the gods are not like ultimate good and ultimate bad. The gods are like, like spirits of the earth or the mountains or the trees of a specific region of the water, elements or aspects of reality, rather than actual like Zeus or Athena or anything like that. You know what I mean? So I just like that idea better because it frees up the direct influence of a god who might be upset about something, or blaming events on gods. No. The reason why the Witch Queen came is because the foundation was laid by the people who exist in Falest. And then they got their tongues ripped out because of it, and they were forced into hiding. So, a lot of them were hunted down and killed. So this is not a divine world. It is a world that's very much created from the people and their choices. And they're not always good. All right. Well, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for helping out, Chris. I appreciate you, man. That is going to do it for this episode. Thank you so much for watching today's DireLands Fantasy Campaign Setting Personalities episode. I never update this. I need to update it all the way. Please consider subscribing to this YouTube channel and liking and commenting on this video. Always remember that evil spelled backwards is live. So get out there and be evil.